The story begins with a boy named Will Stanton. Christmas holidays had just begun at his school, but Will wasn't particularly interested in celebrating Christmas with his large family. As he left school, his eyes fell upon a very beautiful girl wearing a red scarf. Will fell in love with her at first sight. Anyway, he somehow managed to rush and get onto the bus, and soon the girl also boarded the bus. At that time, Will's brothers were making fun of his shy nature on the bus because he kept to himself and didn't have any friends. Eventually, his younger sister, Gwen, told him to go talk to her before she got off the bus. But unfortunately, the girl got off at the very next stop, leaving her scarf on the bus. Will picked up the scarf, but before he could return it, the bus started moving. Then Will and his siblings were on their way home when suddenly a man named Merriman Lyon stopped his car in front of them. Merriman worked for the town's royal mistress, Miss Graythorne. Merriman invited Will and his family to a Christmas party at the royal manor. Finally, when Will arrived home, he saw that his eldest brother, Max, had also returned home for the holidays. Max had taken over Will's room, so Will would now have to sleep in the storeroom. In total, Will had 5 older brothers and 1 younger sister. Will's father seemed to be a bit of a free spirit. Anyway, his father, John, had gotten a job as a lecturer in this town, which is why they had moved there. His mother, Mary, was a housewife who loved her large family very much. That night, they all sat down for dinner, and John asked Max where he was going for graduation. Max said he was still thinking about it. After this, all the boys at the dinner table started making fun of Will because he hadn't managed to talk to the girl on the bus that day. The next day, 2 farmers named Dawson and George brought a Christmas tree for their family. They both seemed very happy to see Will and wished him a happy birthday. Then they said that a storm was coming that night, even though the sky outside was perfectly clear. Later, Will's family gave him lots of gifts. Everyone else's gifts were quite useless, but Will was very excited about Gwen's gift because she was the only one who had thoughtfully bought something for Will. Will opened the box and found a beautiful watch inside. Gwen personally tied the watch on his wrist and asked him to make a wish. Will wished for it to snow there. That night, when Will woke up, he saw that it was snowing, which made him very happy. But due to the intense cold, he had to close the windows. Suddenly, he felt so much strength in his hands that the windows were almost breaking, even though he touched them gently. The next day, Will was at a bus stop when he saw a lot of crows sitting on a nearby tree. Soon the bus arrived and Will rode it to the mall. He had actually come to buy a Christmas gift for Gwen. Soon he found a beautiful pendant which he bought for Gwen. After this, just as Will was about to leave the mall, 2 police officers suddenly grabbed him. They accused him of stealing the pendant and took him with them for questioning. When they reached a room, Will realized that something was definitely wrong. The lights kept flickering, and the appearance of the police officers kept changing. The officers then asked him for information about the sign, but Will didn't know what this sign was. Suddenly, the police officers' true form was revealed, and they tried to attack Will, but Will easily pushed them away and escaped. That was the first time he realized his strength. Now the 2 police officers were hot on his heels, but he managed to escape their clutches. He still didn't understand what was going on or why these people were after him. Will tried to tell his father that strange things were happening to him, but his father and the rest of the family also paid no attention. In the evening, Will and his family went to the royal manor for the Christmas party. The 2 farmers came up to Will and asked him if he was enjoying himself. Will's eyes suddenly fell upon the girl from the bus, but then James interrupted and started talking to her. Seeing this made Will very angry, and he took his coat and started to leave. On the other hand, we see that Merriman Lyon and Miss Graythorne were wondering if they should tell Will about his destiny. Will was walking alone in the woods when suddenly a man on horseback and his dog started chasing him. Will ran for his life, but the man's horse was fast, and he stopped Will. The man also asked Will about the sign, but Will didn't know what he was talking about. But then, suddenly, Merriman Lyon and Miss Graythorne arrived and told the rider to leave Will alone. Now the rider started to leave, but as he went, he said that in a few days he would regain his powers, and when he returned, no one would survive. Now Merriman and his companions saw Will standing there completely bewildered. They used magic to take him back in time to an ancient world. They told Will that he was the ancient warrior destined to save the light of the world. They explained that centuries ago, a war between light and darkness took place at a location called the Great Hall, in which the light was victorious, but it couldn't destroy the darkness forever. Now, to eliminate the darkness, Will must acquire 6 magical signs so he can defeat the evil forces forever. They explained that his full powers awakened on his birthday and that he must have started seeing the signs since then. But soon, the rider also started sensing his own growing powers, and others could also sense his increasing powers, like the rider who had come to kill him. Will still didn't understand why he had these powers, so Merriman explained that according to ancient tales, he is a seeker, the 7th son of a 7th son. They had an ancient book called the Book of Gremory, which contained information on how to identify the signs, and only Will could read this book. Hearing this, Will laughed because he only had 5 brothers, and he was the 6th, not the 7th son of his parents. He said they had chosen the wrong person. Now Will started to leave, but Merriman and his companions said that he couldn't turn his back on his destiny. At that moment, Will was shown a glimpse of the future, where darkness had taken over the entire world. Seeing this, he became extremely frightened and suddenly found himself on a road where he was about to have an accident. Anyway, he somehow made it home, where he did a little more research. Then he asked his father some questions about it because he was a physics professor. Will wanted to know if light could defeat darkness. To this, John told Will why he was thinking about such deep things. "Go have fun. It's your age to have fun," he said. Later, we see Will was in the storeroom when he opened a drawer, slipped, and fell, hurting his leg. Mary called a doctor to bandage him. At that time, Will was going to get something to drink, but as soon as he heard the doctor's voice, he realized that this wasn't a doctor, but the same rider who had come to kill him with his dogs. Now the doctor sent Mary to another room to fetch some supplies so he could talk to Will alone. The doctor healed his leg just by touching it and said that Will could ask for anything if he gave the doctor information about the signs. After this, the doctor used his magic to inflict intense pain on Will's leg and threatened him, saying that if he met the ancient warriors, the rider would kill him and his family. Then, as soon as Mary returned to the room, the doctor got up, leaving Will in pain, and said it would take a few more days for him to recover. After this, Will went back to the storeroom where he found a picture of 2 twin children. He took this picture to his mother, Mary, and Mary told him that Will also had a twin brother named Tom. When Will and his brother were just 2 weeks old, a fierce storm suddenly came outside, making both babies cry. Mary picked up Will and came to the downstairs room and asked John to bring Tom with him. At that time, John was working on his thesis, so he went to Tom's room a minute later, but unfortunately, Tom wasn't there. They tried hard to find Tom, but they never found him after that day. This incident traumatized John so much that he stopped writing his thesis and went into depression. Hearing this, Will realized that a great danger was looming over the world. So he decided to join forces with the ancient warriors.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.